Sometimes, the loudest noise we hear is not from the outside world. It's not from the traffic, the people, or the pressure of daily life. The loudest noise is the endless thinking inside our own mind. One thought leads to another, then to another, until what was simple becomes complicated. What was light becomes heavy. What was peaceful becomes disturbed. But the question is not whether the mind should think. The question is, are you using your mind, or is your mind using you? There is a difference between living with your mind and living in your mind. When you live in your mind, you become a prisoner of thoughts, trapped in scenarios that never happened, judged by voices that are not even your own, exhausted by problems that only exist in imagination. But when you live with your mind, you begin to observe. You create space. You see the thought without becoming the thought. You hear the emotion without becoming the emotion. You no longer drown in overthinking. You learn to float, to swim, to rise. This is not about stopping the mind. It is about stepping back, about learning to live in presence, not in projection, to return again and again to the now where life truly exists. And so the journey of today is simple, but not easy. Stop overthinking. Begin to live. Use your mind. Don't live in it. Overthinking is often mistaken for awareness. Many believe that by thinking more, by analyzing every possibility, by preparing for every outcome, they are becoming wiser, smarter, and more prepared for life. But in truth, overthinking does not bring clarity. It brings confusion. It is like stirring muddy water constantly and expecting it to become clear. Awareness is a state of clarity, of stillness, of deep understanding. Overthinking is the opposite. It is mental turbulence. It is a restlessness of the mind that refuses to settle. It is not the result of presence, but the absence of it. When we overthink, we leave the present moment. We move into imagined futures and replayed pasts. We rehearse conversations that never happened and relive mistakes that have already passed. We try to solve problems that don't even exist yet. This habit, over time, becomes our default way of being. We start to live in a mental fog where everything seems uncertain, where every choice feels risky, where every step forward is delayed by fear and doubt. We become stuck not because of reality, but because of the stories we keep repeating in our minds. The root of overthinking lies in fear. Fear of making the wrong decision. Fear of not being enough. Fear of the unknown. And to cope with that fear, the mind spins stories, tries to calculate every risk, tries to gain control by rehearsing life instead of living it. But control is an illusion. The more we try to control life by thinking excessively, the more disconnected we become from it. Life is not something that can be figured out in the head. It is something that must be experienced with the heart, with the body, with awareness. Overthinking creates a false sense of productivity. It makes us feel like we are doing something, solving something, preparing for something. But what we are actually doing is avoiding action. We are postponing decisions. We are seeking certainty in a world that is inherently uncertain. And because we can never find that certainty through thought alone, the cycle never ends. Thought leads to more thought. Doubt leads to more doubt. And we become trapped in a maze of our own creation. This mental noise is not awareness. It is distraction. It is a cloud that covers the truth rather than revealing it. Awareness, on the other hand, is simple. It is silent. It is direct. It is the ability to see clearly what is happening right now without the interference of judgment, interpretation, or fear. When you are aware, you are present. When you are overthinking, you are absent. You are somewhere else, lost in a world created by thought. The problem is not with thinking itself. Thinking is a natural function of the mind. It helps us plan, communicate, learn, and reflect. But when thinking becomes excessive, uncontrolled, and compulsive, it stops being helpful and starts becoming harmful. It begins to feed anxiety, doubt, insecurity. The mind becomes a noisy room, and we lose touch with the quiet wisdom that lies beneath the noise. People often believe that thinking more will lead to better outcomes. But the greatest decisions, the most profound insights, the clearest moments in life do not come from thinking harder. They come from stillness, from presence, from listening deeply to what is, rather than imagining what could be. Clarity is not found by doing more. It is revealed when we do less, when we stop interfering with the natural intelligence of life. Overthinking also affects the body. It creates tension, fatigue, restlessness. The body mirrors the mind. A busy mind leads to a stressed body. And over time, this stress becomes chronic. It affects sleep, digestion, breathing. It becomes a heavy burden that we carry every day without realizing its weight. The solution is not to fight the mind, but to understand it, to observe its patterns, to see how it creates stories, how it reacts to fear, how it seeks control. And in that observation, a gap is created, a space where awareness can arise. In that space, we begin to realize that we are not the thoughts. We are the observer of thoughts. Just like clouds pass through the sky, thoughts pass through the mind. But the sky is not affected by the clouds. It remains vast and open. Similarly, the awareness within us remains untouched by thoughts. Overthinking loses its grip when we stop identifying with every thought that arises. When we learn to step back, to watch, to remain still amidst the mental storm. The mind is one of the most powerful tools that we possess. It can analyze, solve problems, imagine, and create. It can dream of the future, learn from the past, and shape the present. But like any tool, its value lies in how it is used. A tool in the hands of a skilled master brings beauty, function, and progress. The same tool in the hands of someone who does not understand it can cause harm, confusion, and destruction. The mind, when understood and guided, becomes our ally. But when it becomes the master, it turns against us. When the mind takes control, it no longer serves us. Instead, it dominates us. It decides what we focus on, what we fear, what we pursue, and what we avoid. It pulls us into endless loops of worry, regret, planning, and doubt. We become passengers in our own lives, no longer steering the direction, but simply reacting to wherever the mind takes us. This is not freedom. This is not mastery. This is servitude to a tool that was meant to serve us. A mind left unchecked starts to feed on itself. It spins stories that may not be true. It builds scenarios that may never happen. It amplifies small worries into large anxieties. It creates problems just so it can solve them. It gets addicted to stimulation, to comparison, to judgment, to noise. It starts to believe that it is the center of the universe, and in doing so, disconnects us from life as it actually is. We begin to see the world not as it is, but as the mind interprets it, through the lenses of fear, bias, past experiences, and expectations. There is a quiet strength in recognizing that you are not your mind. The thoughts that arise in your head are not facts. They are not orders. They are suggestions, possibilities, echoes of conditioning. Just because a thought appears does not mean it deserves attention. Just because a thought feels urgent does not mean it is important. The mind has learned to survive, not to thrive. Its habits are rooted in protection, repetition, and prediction. But thriving requires something more than survival. It requires presence, trust, stillness, and courage. When the mind is the master, we are constantly caught in a state of doing. We cannot sit still without reaching for a distraction. We cannot enjoy a moment without analyzing it. We cannot be alone without filling the silence with thought. This constant movement keeps us from sinking into the depth of the present. It keeps us from truly listening, from truly feeling, from truly living. A masterful life does not come from thinking more, but from thinking less and being more. Reclaiming mastery over the mind does not mean suppressing it. It means training it, guiding it, teaching it when to speak and when to be silent. It means developing awareness strong enough to notice when the mind is helpful and when it is not. It means creating space between stimulus and response so we can choose rather than react. The mind should be like a faithful servant, ready when needed, quiet when not, always under the guidance of your deeper awareness. This guidance can only come from a place beyond thought. It comes from stillness, from presence, from the part of you that exists before thought arises. This space is not empty. It is full of clarity, intuition, and wisdom that cannot be reached through analysis. It is the part of you that notices the thoughts, but is not caught in them. It is the observer, the witness, the silent presence behind the noise. When you begin to live from that place, the mind becomes a useful companion. You can use it to create, to organize, to reflect. But you are no longer enslaved by it. You are no longer pulled into every thought, no longer controlled by every emotion, no longer stuck in mental loops. You become free. Not free from the mind, but free from its control. The practice of observing the mind without judgment is one of the highest disciplines. It requires patience, discipline, and humility. It requires the courage to face yourself without escaping into thought. But the reward is inner freedom, a life no longer dictated by mental habits, but guided by conscious awareness. When the mind becomes your servant again, peace becomes natural, clarity becomes common, and life becomes a lived experience, not just a thought process. Clarity is not something that can be forced through effort or arrived at by thinking harder. It is something that naturally arises when the noise of the mind begins to settle. Just as muddy water becomes clear when left undisturbed, the mind too begins to reveal truth when we stop interfering with it. But most people try to think their way to clarity. They add more thoughts, more analysis, more comparison, believing that if they just consider one more angle or explore one more possibility, the answer will appear. What they don't realize is that clarity doesn't come from the addition of thought, but from the absence of unnecessary thought. The more we identify with our thoughts, the more entangled we become in them. We believe that every thought must be listened to, every emotion must be reacted to, and every inner voice must be taken seriously. But thoughts are not facts. They are reflections of our conditioning, our fears, our desires, and our memories. They often speak from a place of protection, not truth. The mind does not seek what is true. It seeks what is familiar, what is safe, what it already knows. That is why it resists silence, uncertainty, and change. And yet, those are the exact states in which clarity begins to emerge. Creating distance between yourself and your thoughts does not mean running away from them. It means watching them from a place of awareness. It means noticing a thought arise without immediately following it, judging it, or believing it. It means observing how the mind jumps from one topic to another, how it creates fear out of uncertainty, how it resists stillness. In this observation, something powerful begins to happen. You start to realize that you are not the thought. You are the one who sees the thought. You are not the mind, you are the awareness behind it. This space of awareness is where clarity lives. It is quiet, it does not shout, it does not rush. It simply sees things as they are, without the filter of mental commentary. But to reach this space, you must be willing to stop feeding the mind with more information, more stimulation, more opinions. You must be willing to sit in silence, to feel discomfort without escaping into distraction, to trust that you do not need to think your way out of every problem. Sometimes the most intelligent response is stillness. Sometimes the deepest answer is no answer at all, just presence, just being. The world we live in encourages constant mental activity. We are surrounded by noise, by opinions, by options, by expectations. The mind becomes addicted to processing all of it. It becomes a spinning wheel that never stops. But a wheel that spins too fast becomes unstable. It loses balance. The same is true for the mind. Without rest, without space, it cannot function clearly. It starts to confuse complexity with intelligence, speed with effectiveness, volume with value. But wisdom is not found in complexity. It is found in simplicity, in clarity, in seeing what truly matters and letting go of what does not. To create distance from your thoughts, begin by noticing them, not with judgment, but with curiosity. What is this thought trying to protect me from? Where is it coming from? Is it even true? Does it serve me? By asking these questions without immediately reacting, you interrupt the automatic cycle of identification. You give yourself a chance to respond rather than react. And in that response, clarity begins to form, not as an idea, but as a felt sense of knowing. This inner distance also helps dissolve emotional confusion. Often, we are overwhelmed not just by thought, but by the emotions they trigger. A single thought of fear can create waves of anxiety. A single memory of pain can reignite suffering. But when you learn to watch the mind, instead of being swept away by it, you also learn to watch emotions without drowning in them. You learn to sit with discomfort, to breathe through it, to understand it rather than escape it. Emotions, like thoughts, are visitors. They come and go, and the more space you give them to pass, the less power they have over you. Clarity is not something you create. It is something you uncover. It has always been there, underneath the layers of fear, doubt, and overthinking. It is not given by the mind. It is revealed when the mind quiets down. Just like the sun is always shining behind the clouds, clarity is always present behind the mental storm. Your role is not to chase it, but to clear the path for it to shine through. This path begins with awareness, with observation, with the courage to step back from the mind and enter into stillness, even if just for a moment. Living with the mind means recognizing it as a companion on the path of life, not the one walking the path for you. The mind is a remarkable mechanism, capable of processing, remembering, imagining, and planning. But when we start to live inside of it, immersed completely in its voice, its judgments, and its illusions, we lose our connection with what is real. Living with the mind is different. It means standing beside it, aware of its activity, yet not being consumed by it. It means knowing that the mind produces thoughts like the lungs produce breath, but you are not the lungs, and you are not the mind. There is a deep shift in experience when you begin to observe the mind instead of obey it. You start to notice how quickly it jumps from one topic to another, how easily it becomes triggered, how persistently it replays old stories and projects new worries. You begin to witness the habits it has formed over the years, habits of fear, of over-analysis, of criticism, of distraction. This witnessing is the first step in reclaiming your inner space. It is the doorway to living with the mind instead of within it. Because when you are inside the mind, you cannot see it. When you live with the mind, you see it clearly, and that clarity changes everything. The mind thrives on identification. It wants you to believe that you are your thoughts, that every passing image or idea defines who you are. It clings to labels, to memories, to expectations. But these things are not your essence. They are expressions, experiences, but not your core. Living with the mind allows you to engage with thought as needed, using it for reflection, for creativity, for strategy, but without being dominated by it. It becomes a tool you carry rather than a weight you drag. This relationship with the mind is similar to your relationship with the weather. You notice when it rains. You feel the cold or the heat. But you do not become the rain. You do not become the wind. In the same way, thoughts and emotions are part of your internal weather. They pass through. You feel them. But when you live with the mind, you don't mistake the passing storm for your permanent reality. You allow it. You observe it. You respond wisely, not react blindly. Many people are trapped in the habit of mental absorption. They live in the constant chatter of the mind and forget to truly see, hear, and feel what is happening around them. They are walking through life in a dream, not awake to the richness of each moment. They are busy solving problems that exist only in their imagination, while missing the beauty of the present. Living with the mind means waking up from that dream. It means stepping into reality, not the imagined one in your head, but the one unfolding here and now. The practice of meditation and mindfulness becomes essential in this process. Not because these practices are magical, but because they train you to return to awareness again and again. They teach you to sit still and notice what the mind is doing without needing to act on it. You begin to sense the space between you and your thoughts, between you and your impulses. That space is where freedom begins. It is where you remember that you are more than mental activity. You are the one who sees. Living with the mind also brings humility. You realize that the mind cannot know everything, cannot control everything, cannot predict everything. You stop demanding perfection from it and start respecting its limits. You use it wisely, but do not rely on it completely. You let the deeper intelligence of life guide you as well. Intuition, presence, silence, stillness. These are not enemies of the mind. They are its balance. Without them, the mind becomes loud and lost. With them, the mind becomes sharp, useful, and calm. There is also a gentleness that arises when you live with the mind. You no longer fight it or hate it for being restless or fearful. You understand that it is trying to protect you, trying to help you make sense of the world. But now you are the one in charge. You listen, but you decide. You consider, but you choose. The mind can speak, but it is not the only voice you trust. You begin to hear another voice, quieter, deeper, wiser. The voice that comes not from the head, but from awareness itself. This voice does not argue. It does not panic. It simply knows. And when you learn to live with the mind, that voice becomes clear again. So now we return to the essence of this journey, not to escape the mind, but to understand it, to observe it, and ultimately to live with it rather than within it. Overthinking is not awareness. It is entrapment. And the mind, though powerful, is not meant to rule over you. It is meant to serve you. Clarity arises not from adding more thought, but from creating space. A distance that allows you to see, to feel, to respond with wisdom rather than react from habit. And when you live with the mind, as its observer, as its guide, you begin to experience a new quality of presence, a quiet strength, a deeper freedom. You begin to step out of the noise and into the now, where peace exists not as a concept, but as a living reality. This is not a philosophy to believe in, it is a practice to live, because life is not happening in your thoughts. Life is happening now. And when you stop overthinking, when you stop living in the mind and start living with it, you begin to truly live.